Hey there, welcome to our channel. Let's continue with our series. So in this episode, we are going to work on our payment section. So far, in the previous episodes, we have created our card and we have created our order as well as just to check it out how order system's gonna work, right? So this episode purely we are going to discuss about all the payment stuff, right? So we will try to understand how we can collect the payment and how our payment provider is interacting with our bank account, right? And how our backend systems are receiving all this stuff and in order to make our order successful, all right? So this is the whole mechanism we are going to try to understand, right? So I know in the very beginning we're going to describe all these scenarios with the help of diagrams. So I know it's a boring lecture, but still, if you're able to survive, then definitely you will get a lot of stuff throughout of this whole lecture, right? So let's try to understand what we're going to do today. All right. So first of all, at the existing code, we need to understand how the order systems are created. All right. So I have already explained this kind of the e-commerce order creation mechanism in one of our another series as well as just to try to understand how order systems are created for throughout of all the big e-commerce companies. So I have personally worked with the famous all the big more than 10 big e-commerce companies and in their various projects and various part of the product journey. And one of the experience maybe I can share with you, most of the big e-commerce companies are following hybrid model. All right. So why I'm saying hybrid model? Right before jumping into the hybrid model, you need to try to understand what are the models we are following to create the order and the cart, right? So why these two approaches are needed, right? So first of all, let's try to understand one by one, right? So first of all, we are going to discuss about this one, right? So create the order first, then they collect the payment. So in this approach, the order is recorded in the system before the payment is processed, right? So this is what we are doing, right? So because we are creating the order, we are keeping it in our system, right? Say, hey, this order is we have received from one customer. Then we are collecting the payment. So this approach, the good side is better user experience, right? So this allows the user to confirm the details before making the payment, right, to the checkout process, right? So by mistake, and if you have any changes, if you have suppose placed an order and you see hey, we have the 2 or 3 quantity or something like that, or maybe I have by mistake and placed the order, the quantity is supposed to be 1, but I have by mistake and I have added 2, right? So you have at least customer has the flexibility to amend his order right before proceed to the payment, right? And another scenarios, right? Why I'm saying it's a kind of better approach for the customers. So customer no need to go back to the card again. Let's say in these scenarios, if the customer the payment is failed, then again he need to go back to the card and need to place an order again and do something like this way, right? So these scenarios, right? So user will be not get the better experience right now, right? So and again, maybe throughout of the make the payment, then cart, let's say one item was left, right? Then payment failed, right? So then until we receive the payment, we are not creating order. So we don't know about what will be the stock right there, right? So in this case, sometimes customer is placing order to unfulfillment of the stock, right? So because by the time you are making the repayment, then your stock has gone, right? So then this is a kind of little bit chaotic, right? So we need to book that particular items stock, right, in inventory. So to make sure customer has to be always fulfilled with the item. In this process, we are creating the order first, right? So in this case, our inventory service is going to block that particular stock for our card items, right? So there are no any kind of order will be there where we cannot fulfill, all right, due to the out of stock or something, right? That's why this approach also applying by most of the companies, right? And another thing is an inventory management always gonna help us. If certain cases this order is failed, then we can have chances to revert the inventory to the cart, all right? Maybe the stock will be again come back, right? Then once we are going to collect the payment, then we can just confirm the order, right? Then you no need to do anything to the inventory service at all. So you have a full flash of the flexibility. And in terms of if you try to make something, as an example, in big economic countries, all right? So in certain e-commerce companies, they're like providing cash on delivery. That is a kind of convention of COD, right? Cash on delivery, or whatever, like receive the product, then make the payment. No need to make a payment upfront, right? So this kind of application, if you're targeting, then definitely this is a kind of very good approach, right? And this one is always going to be helpful while you have a digital goods, right? As an example, you are processing a game, you are processing a membership, you are processing something, right? That is not going to be a physical product. And in that case, you can just apply this approach. First of all, collect the payment, then place the order. So because there are no any kind of stock, out of stock things are gonna be involved in this case, right? But I'm not saying like it cannot be possible for physical goods as well. So it is possible for physical goods. And this is we can apply for better user experience to get rid of like out of stock stuff, all right? So in this case, there is a kind of cons also, disadvantages also. Sometimes people are creating the order, they are not making payment. So in this case, the abandon rate of the order it's increasing, right? So there has to be some mechanism, like certain times if your order is not getting created, then please revert, like your order expired or something. Leave an email, and after that you just like revert that particular inventory to cart, right? Or maybe inventory service. So that is the thing, that is the disadvantage of this one, right? So in this case, there are no any kind of abandon rate, right? So here there's a current guaranteed revenue. So you are always gonna receive the payment, right? Receive the payment, then you are going to place the order. So you are collecting the payment upfront, right? And this is reducing the fraud as well. So in this case, like while you are placing an order and as a kind of cash on delivery, and you have received then customer received the product, and they just open the product and they say, hey, this is not what I was looking for. I was ordering red color, then it is green color. Then why I will accept it? So there is a kind of chances of fraud as well, right? And because you cannot expect the customer gonna be always honest, right? So by looking at both of the scenarios, you can see like both of the scenarios has their own pros and cons, right? So what we are gonna do, first of all, we are going to apply one of them. Like this scenario only possible with the microservice architecture, right? So and this scenario we can apply with the monolithic architecture. So right now our application is monolithic, so that's why we are going to apply this one. Then once we are going to apply, once we are going to work on our microservice architecture, definitely we are going to apply these scenarios, right? So you might have thinking like why we have discussed these two scenarios, because we are gonna work with these two approaches. That's for sure, right? So let's try to handle this one first then, right? So now there are a lot of talk regarding the order creation and the fulfillment. And now let's try to discuss about how payment systems are working, right? So while our user is coming to our website, then once they are trying to place the order, then what they are doing, right? Well, once they are placing the order, then our backend systems are receiving one kind of event from our website, right? So then backend system, what it is going to do, it is going to request a kind of session to our payment provider. Gonna say, hey, we need to collect some payment. We're requesting a session. Please to create a session for us, right? For that particular order by providing some kind of order amount, or right? And currency and order ID and etc. We can provide it right there. Then payment provider is creating a session response, like they're creating a session, they're storing in their database, and they're providing it back, right, to the backend service. And in the backend service, this response will be contain our payment ID and our payment information in terms of like what kind of payments we are going to support, let's say card, bank, net banking, or maybe cash on delivery or whatever, right? And along with one kind of the URL or maybe secret, right? So it's up to what kind of payment interface we are going to apply. Based on that, we can like receive that particular session response. Then backend service, we're going to respond like to our front end, because front end application already requested that particular session request to backend service. Backend service is gonna talk to our provider. There's a kind of server to server call gonna happen, right? Then backend service is going to respond these things to our front end application. Then front end application, what it will do based on what kind of interface we are enrolling, right? So some payment provider has kind of facility like you can customize your web interface or payment interface in your own way. Let's say you're gonna put your own logo right there. You will be having like a card field, right? Then a cardholder field, right? Then expiry CVV and etc. So all those things also you can customize at your website. then you can utilize that particular session response right there to show or initiate the payment, right, to collect the card data. But there's a thing. Always you cannot do all those stuff, or maybe you cannot collect the card data on behalf of the payment provider itself, right? So there's a kind of certain compliance also there, right? So if you go to Google, all right, so let's say go to a new window. This is called the PCI DSS compliance, all right? So if you type the PCI DSS compliance. So what PCI DSS compliance exactly? So PCI DSS compliance is a kind of payment card industry data security standard. So this is a kind of standard that has to be met by your organization, met by your company, right? Then only you can store the customers like the payment card or payment informations right there, right? So especially the crucial credential, as an example, card data, net banking, or whatever. Net banking absolutely you cannot store, but definitely card data you can store it right there, right? So if you have this kind of compliance, then you can go ahead and build your own UI right there, collect the card data, and store the customer card data somewhere in your application, right? And in your database, then you can reutilize all the stuff while customer gonna try to make the payment again for the next time, right? But this is really kind of like legal compliance stuff. All right, then only you can do that. But still, you can customize your payment UI also based on provider, which provider you are using. So provider is providing some kind of customization based on your integration type, right? So in our case, what we're gonna do, we can do both, right? But for a while, what we are gonna do, we are going to hand it over all this the payment collection, the complexity to our payment provider. So we're gonna use the inbuilt UI of our payment provider, right? So once we are requesting the session, then we are going to say, hey, we don't want to customize the fields because we don't want to take some extra work for that. This is nothing like it is. We are just like designing the payment form. We're adding a couple of fields right there, right? And we're making our logo. We are adding our logo there. We're simplifying all the stuff like as per our own team. So we're not gonna do that. We are gonna say hey, please provide your UI. We just simply wanna collect the money, all right, on behalf of our application, right? So using your provider, we're gonna collect all the money. Then based on that URL, it is going to open that particular dedicated page. So where you can see it is going to be disconnected right now. So this is not going to be strong connection. This is weak connection. So now our web page and the payment is disconnected from here, right? So once we are open that URL is not belongs to us because it belongs to payment provider, right? Then it's going to disconnect that and it's going to display the whole page where customer can enter its credential, right? To make sure to collect the payment, to proceed the payment. Then this communication is gonna happen, card credential and etc. Everything gonna happen with the payment provider, right? So there are no connection between our backend service, front-end service at all, right? So now payment provider will be, once the customer will hit the submit stuff, right? So all the information, then payment provider will send a request to a bank, right? So the payment provider and the bank has a kind of special mutual understanding and agreement. So they can utilize customer data, right? And they can request to the bank in real time to get the grant approval. All these things are happening automatically. There are no any human intervention are going to be required, right? And as you can see, as soon as the bank is receiving all that particular authorization request, right? By looking at certain scenarios, as an example, if you are using credit card or any kind of card, then the card number, card holder name, all right? Then billing address, and after that the CVV and expiry, all right? If they check hey, this is really, it seems like a real user, right? So this user is holding one account in our bank. Then bank is granting an approval, right? Based on the credential, right? Then payment provider, once that they are receiving the approval, then what they are doing, they are sending a notification to our backend service. So based on what kind of integration we are enrolling for, right? As I said, we have two integration. One is kind of customization and one is called inbuilt, right? So based on that response, the payment provider sending that notification, then backend service need to do some work right there internally to make sure that particular payment has been confirmed or etc. right? Then once backend service received the notification, then backend service gonna say, hey, we have received the authorization, now good to go, right? Then, but you can see their disconnections are there, right? You cannot directly get this feedback to right here because it's already got disconnected. So what exactly is happening right here? So as soon as customer is submitting all the information, once this authorization approval, like grant approval or received from the bank, then this payment provider, it is directly saying to the web page, gonna say, hey, we have received the grant permission, your transaction was successful, right? We don't care, like we are gonna capture the money or not, we don't care, but we have received the grant approval right here, right? So in this case, so this is the one way where we can receive the payment, all right? So in this case, what it's gonna happen, so while payment provider is sending back one response to this web page, then you can see like in the very first time we have requested a session also. In this session, what we can do, we can add a kind of success URL and failure URL, right? So these are the two URLs we can directly attach to that particular request also, while our backend service can request to the payment provider, right? Then based on this scenarios, like the payment provider has received the grant approval or not, this grant approval is from the bank. It's based on do you have the enough money in your bank, right? In the authorization request, the payment provider gonna send like, hey, we need authorization for charge this particular card for the customer, gonna say like $500. Then bank gonna verify, hey, the customer doesn't have the $500 at all, it has only $100. Then bank will deny this request, then it will going to fall off to the failure URL. Then what the failure we are gonna do, like you can see there are disconnection, right? There are no any connection. Then this page gonna trigger that are one of our endpoint, this failure URL gonna be happen less like your website failed. That's a failed payment. So this is gonna be like our failed payment URL, right? This URL we are gonna attach from our backend service while we are gonna request the session. And the similar things gonna happen while payment provider received the grant approval success, then it will return the URL as a kind of success URL. Then again, our website will gonna spin like, hey, this is the endpoint, right? So failure payment, and the similar endpoint is gonna be happen just like success, right? So based on that particular endpoint, our web page is gonna show like, hey, we have received your payment, your order is successful, right? So now you can see based on this particular two endpoints, our backend service need to confirm the payment also from the payment provider. Like backend service gonna say like, hey, we have received a notification via transaction notification webhook, right? But in our current integration, we have not used that one. Then how our backend service gonna know, all right? Then backend service going to do one kind of verification call to the payment provider. This is going to be payment status verification, or maybe you can say payment status. They're going to make a kind of backend service going to make a call. It's called payment status. Then payment status from the payment provider, right? Because while we made this payment request, right, this session request, we have received the response, and inside this response we have the payment ID. So we need to store this particular the ID in our database. So while we are hitting the success or the URL, then success URL gonna call like our backend service gonna say, hey, let's verify this particular payment, right? Then this particular payment status going to call the payment provider with the help of our payment ID. Then our backend service is going to make a call to the payment provider as a call. It's called payment status. Then backend service will confirm like, hey, we have received the payment. Let's create the order. So this is the way exactly we are receiving the payment and like creating the order. So in the sequence diagram, you can see like this is the similar thing I have created here as well. So our website is calling to our backend service is requesting a session. Then session response, it is coming with like all this credential and the URL. Then this is we are providing from our backend service to our website as a kind of response because for this request, all right, with the payment initiate URL. Then our website is opening that particular the payment URL right there. Then this payment URL again, just like it's calling to the kind of payment provider. This is not request session. This is payment authorization. All right. Then this website is calling a kind of call that's called payment authorization right after putting all the card details. Then our bank, like our payment provider calling to our bank for authorization request, then bank is providing this grant approval. Then while our payment provider is receiving, if you have enrolled for the webhook, our backend service will receive all this particular status in the webhook as well as. Otherwise, then if you are not enrolling for that one, then this capture fund is going to happen, right? So because this capture fund is based on different scenarios, like which country you are doing the business, or certain country regulations. Based on that, capture fund can happen instantly also, or maybe after deliver the product also, right? So based on the countries, this capture fund is going to happen. So in our case, like we are going to do instant capture. So as soon as we are received the approval from our bank, we are going to capture the fund. Then what we are going to do, we are going to send the response, like received the upon received the fund, right? We're going to say, hey, we received success response. All right. So this success response, we are going to send it back to where? All right. So we're going to send it back to that particular web page that is opened by our website, right? So as soon as this page is received to that particular the success response, then it is going to open that success URL from here, right? So this is going to be success URL, right? Right, then this is going to be success URL. Then again, the success URL going to call our backend service for payment verification. And upon receipt of the payment verification successfully, then we are going to create the order in our backend service. So this is what exactly we are going to do, right? I know it's a long description, all right? So I hope like you people are not paid up at all. Let's try to implement all these things in the source code, right?